What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Movies That Make You podcast, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're a catalyst for meaningful conversations. I'm Jonathan Sprang, and I go by Sprang, and most weeks we dive into movies to watch in preparation for a new release hitting theaters. But we don't stop there. We talk about the deeper ideas, the life lessons, and the morals that these films have to offer. This week, we're going to be prepping for Andor Season 2. I know most of the time we're talking about movies, but we've got Scott Raymond going to be back on the show. He wants to talk Star Wars. I don't have a problem with that, so we're going to talk about it that week in preparation for one of the best Star Wars series that Disney has put out. We hope you'll jump over to our website and see all of our links. It's bio.site/movies that make you. That's bio.site/movies that make you. There you'll find all of our links to our Instagram, to each podcast stream, whether it's Apple or Spotify. You'll also find our Letterboxd link, which highlights the lists of movies that make you laugh, movies that make you cry, movies that make you scream, and everything in between. Before we dive into this week's episode, though, let's take a look at the next 4 weeks on the Movies That Make You podcast. Next week, we're going to be prepping for Thunderbolts. This is the second Marvel movie coming out this year, and it features a whole bunch of the side characters all teaming up to stop a villain. Looks like a lot of fun. So we watched a few Marvel movies where these characters were introduced, and we had a lot of fun with those, and we'll talk through all of the Marvel stories that we can on that episode. The week after that, we're talking about Tom Shadyac films. The three films in particular are Evan Almighty, Bruce Almighty, and Liar Liar. Three of these films that have a really strong moral, so we wanted to take a look at those. They requested to watch Bruce Almighty. I said, let's make an episode out of it. The week after that, Kristen's going to be on. We're talking Final Destination films. This is one of the horror films that she actually really enjoyed, and so we rewatched all the ones leading up to the new one. Bloodlines looks amazing. Looks very scary, so we're looking forward to that conversation. Week after that, the boys are going to be back. We're talking Mission Impossible. We watched a few of the films to gear up for the final reckoning, but we're also going to rate the stunts from the Mission Impossible movies. All the ones that Tom Cruise did himself, we're going to rate them 1 to 10. Hope those episodes excite you. So without further ado, let's get to the podcast. We are back with another episode of the Movies That Make You podcast. I am Sprang, and we are welcoming back to the show my nephew Scott. He's joining us again. How you doing, buddy?
It's good to be here.
Good. So last time you were on the show, we did the best films from 1999, and we had some good conversation, but one of the things that you said was, I want to talk Star Wars. I said, all right, we'll put that on the calendar. Let's see what we can come up with. And what's funny is when I was putting this on the calendar, I was thinking Andor, because that drops on Tuesday. So the day after this airs will be Andor Season 2. But there's also something else that's happening that Friday, which is the re-release for the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna. It's kind of like it's a double whammy this week. So we're doing the Star Wars talk. So very excited for this. Appreciate you being on the show. We like to do a little catch up, man. How things going? How's life going? What movies you've been seeing?
I really haven't seen much of any movies, actually. Just been busy with work, and when I'm not working, I want to stay home.
Yeah, for sure. We the boys and I are going through the Mission Impossible series. I
Good
watched
one.
the first 4 by myself because the 8th one, the final one's coming out. It's the final reckoning. I didn't want to make them, because last time when 7 came out 2 years ago, we watched all 6 before that, and I was like, it was before the podcast, and so I didn't want to make them go through all 7 movies again. So I said, let's just limit it. I was going to limit it to 6 and 7, but then when I found in my research that Chris McQuarrie when he came in was the 5th Mission Impossible, and I thought that was when it kind of introduced a villain that kind of is carrying over movie. I was like, well, let's go ahead and start at 5, because that feels like a good jumping off point to kind of carry this through. This will be the 4th one that he's directed, and all the ones before that were all 4 different directors, and so they all had their different vibe. I think in 5 they really kind of hit something, and they're like, let's ride this. So that's what we're watching through right now. We watched some other like Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty, and Evan Almighty. It's kind of like these moral comedies with the boys, and talk through that. That's dropping in a couple weeks. Thunderbolts is dropping next week, so we watched some of the Marvel stuff to get ready for Thunderbolts. But today's Star Wars, so I mean we've got so much to get through. Like, let's just go ahead and jump into it. So let's start with the original trilogy. We're gonna kind of go in like release order. That's the way I have my head set. So kind of like what they released is. Let's start with the films. What was your first experience with the Star Wars movies?
I don't know if I can remember my first experience. I can remember, I mean, it's with the original trilogy. I know that. My mom's car used to have the little drop-down screen on the ceiling, and every road trip down to South Texas, I would bring Return of the Jedi. That was my favorite one growing up. Now that I'm a little older, Empire is much up, like way higher up there. And I mean, Revenge of the Sith has the action sequence that I enjoy.
Sure.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just always stuck with me. We've always had like we've always had the plastic lightsabers to play with outside. We've always had. I mean, I've always had the video games to go with. We'll talk a lot
Mm-hmm.
about those later.
Yeah. What was it that fascinated you? What grabbed you about Star Wars outside of other films that were out there? What was it that grabbed your attention?
I think it was more of the grounding in sci-fi than the fantasy. And like Lord of the Rings is cool, and I like the magic side of that, but the technological side of Star Wars has always been a cool thing. Now it's all about space wizards, so it's the same thing. It's just it has the cool light swords. That's
Yeah.
always captivated me.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely it's the laser swords, and I think it was the Force, like the telekinesis type idea. And I think too with the original trilogy, the way that it was laid out before we were gonna get the prequel trilogy, it was really the story of a hero's journey. It was the story of a kid, that was the chosen one that's going to bring balance to the Force. He's the one that's going to return, the balance to the galaxy. And then you throw in, once you get to Empire, you throw in the fact that the villain from the first movie is now his dad. So that adds another layer of complexity to the storyline. And then in Return of the Jedi, which is still when I was a kid, it was my favorite. And so for me, that nostalgia weighs out everything else. And so
Fair.
for me, Jedi is still my favorite. While it might not be the better movie, and I definitely love Empire for Hoth, for the Darth,
Bespin and
yeah, Vespin,
everything
and yeah,
about it.
it's great. It's great, and I'm not going to deny that. But I think, and I was just actually talking to somebody today that I think even with the prequel trilogy, you still get a resolution in Jedi that it pays off tremendously. Even if it was just Luke's dad turning back and rescuing Luke, like that's enough. But when you play that back with the prequels and you're like, empathetic towards Anakin and how he was tricked and all that, like Jedi still pays off in the end. And in my opinion, the bridge conversation where they're like, he's still on the moon of Endor, he's taking him to go see the Emperor, and they have that conversation on the bridge. It's like, that's such a powerful conversation, and it's weighted
Absolutely.
so much, and their relationship is so key to the fact that Vader was able to choose the light after all. So pretty cool stuff, in my opinion. So, so you watched the movies, the original trilogy. You said that Empire is your favorite now. So tell us a little bit about Empire. Why is that way up? We mentioned a few things, but what puts it over the edge?
From a storyboard perspective, I see it as more of a mature mindset of a movie. I mean, the emotional baggage that comes with the big antagonist of the story being your dad, and how do you cope with that, and the learning that this girl that you really like is your sister. I
Yeah.
guess he doesn't learn that.
He doesn't learn
I
that till
mean,
Jedi, but he kind
yeah,
of figures it out. When he leaves for Vespin, that's when Yoda tells Obi-Wan, no, there's another. So we kind of get a hint that there's somebody else out there. So that's kind of how she's introduced. But yeah, we don't know that it's her. But then he speaks to her through the Force, and that makes them come back to pick him up after he loses to Vader. So there's that hint that she's his sister. Yeah.
yeah. All the scenes on Hoth, the ATAs, and
Hmm.
which I always called walkers growing up. I
Yeah.
don't know why. I
Yeah.
don't know what it was that made me call them that, but I mean the scenes with the ATs and the snow speeders and wrapping up the legs.
Yeah. Have you seen
It's
this
just
really old
cool.
movie called Empire Strikes Back? Like,
Yeah,
to quote
I
Spider-Man.
got that. I know that reference.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, I think it's so one of the things the real original trilogy did a really good job of is continuing to expand the visuals, continue to expand the story, continue to expand um the things that you're seeing and the things you're experiencing. And I think that's when you get done with A New Hope and you think, oh, let's go see the sequel. It's going to be the same thing. They're going to be flying around space. We're going to see some desert planets, and it opens on a snow
Wrong.
planet. You're like, wait, what? And then, you get everything space battles in the first one. And now we've got these big land AT-AT walkers, and it's like, okay, this is something more. So I think it ups the ante. And then you get the whole, like, they split off and Luke's got to go train with this old Jedi. The whole Yoda stuff is great. That came out in 1980, which is my birthday, right around my birthday. Literally, some kids from the youth group stole one of those old gas station signs and put it in the front yard of my parents' house and said Yoda, welcome home Yoda, because I had a squashed face when I was a baby. And so it's just this funny, like, history with that, with that character. I think the way that he's introduced, where he's a funny kind of joke, and then he's like, he just that turn, that change happens, and he begins to speak to Obi-Wan, and you're like, oh crap, this guy is legit. It's just a great introduction for sure. The training scenes, all that stuff, it's good stuff for sure. So I've rewatched them a couple times now. Recently, one was when I was dating Kristen. I was like, we got to watch some of these Star Wars movies. And then the
She had
second
never seen
time,
him, right?
right, she'd never seen a single Star Wars anything. And then she gave up her stance on no Star Wars for me. So, that's love. If it's nothing else, that's love.
Yeah.
And
Oh
then
yeah.
I wanted to take the boys through it chronologically, or um, and stuff like that. So I've watched through
So
the series.
you went chronologically with the boys?
No, you're right. I did not go chronologically. We did Solo to kind of get them introduced to the world in modern context, Rogue One, and then New Hope, Empire, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. We did all of that to go see The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
So, yeah, kind of a little bit of the machete order, but it's like, I like the idea of, especially for someone that a young kid, or even Kristen, she wasn't really into like older movies, be able to show her the world within a more of a palatable visual.
Yeah.
It helped
Yeah.
introduce it to them. So
That was one of the big things I was going to talk about, was the watch order. I feel very strongly about how to watch them, but I made my decision on how I would tell everybody else to watch them before Rogue One and Solo came out. So where do those fit in? Because you can't watch, I mean, in my mind, you can't really watch Rogue One before A New Hope, or you don't really know what the stakes are. You don't know what the Battle of Yavin is actually going to be like. And then you just meet all these characters for them to die immediately. And that's hard to ingest. But if you don't watch Rogue One before A New Hope, then it lining up perfectly there at the end doesn't really make sense either. So, and then Solo is it's just there. I mean, it's a good movie and it did a lot of things. And as someone who grew up watching the Clone Wars, that whole show and knowing that Darth Maul survived, like seeing the hologram at the end of Solo, like my dad looked at me, like I remember we're sitting there, we're watching it, movie ends, and my dad goes, "Was that who I think it is?" I was like, "Yeah, Dad, you have to watch 20 episodes of the Clone Wars and you'll be fine." Disney Plus had their essential 20 episodes or whatever. And if you watched those, you'd get the gist of most of it. I mean, I'd still recommend watching all 7 seasons of it, but we'll get there.
yeah, so I think I remember talking to your dad about that moment, and I think he thought, "Oh, this movie was before." In a minute, no, no, it's great. The Clone Wars, it's great. Like you said, we'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, I mean, I think the original trilogy was a really solid, complete story. Yes, there's a lot going on. Yes, that there could be more told, but it felt like a lived-in story. It felt like very episodic. Here's another adventure with this group of folks. Didn't really try to hold too much to itself. It introduces new thing in each one. And so it's like each movie can stand alone, but it also is, as a standalone trilogy, is a really solid series. I would say, watching it again with the boys, episode 4 is a little slow at the front end. It's a lot of just like, if you aren't already invested, like it's hard for a current person to see it and be like enthralled at all by it. But it's like, just hold on. Cause I remember even as a kid, like I would watch it and I'm just sitting there waiting for the lightsaber. And then it's like, once the lightsaber's okay, now we're ready. Now we're into,
Now the movie started.
yeah, yeah. But I think it's just setting the stage for all of that and setting up the reasons for why Luke leaves Tatooine. There has to be a reason that he leaves to go follow his path towards becoming
It's the sand.
Yeah,
It's coarse and it gets everywhere, and
just
nobody
like his
wants to be
dad.
there. Yeah, like father, like son.
Yep, exactly. So let's jump into the prequel trilogy. 1999, we get the first one. I remember being in, I was actually traveling with a group from college when we got the news of what the name was going to be. And a lot of us were just a little confused as to what that meant. But George Lucas is back. He's got all the money from the original trilogy. The difference is that in the original trilogy, he hired other people to direct and write the movies, and he was just producing and came up with the story. Well, with this prequel trilogy, he's going to own it all. He's going to story, he's going to script it, and he's going to direct it. And it's a little bit tough to watch through for me. A lot of people were a little flustered by it, but you weren't even born yet when this movie came out.
I was
So
not.
what's your experience with the prequels?
I don't think I watched the movies before 2007. So I would have been 7. But the significance of 2007 was when the Wii came out. Shortly thereafter, we got the Lego Star Wars Complete Saga, and I did play every bit of that game. So I knew the story before I watched the movie. I'm pretty sure. It's been 15 years, even more. I don't know.
Yeah,
The edge of some of those creative ideas is removed when you have Lego characters that don't speak.
right.
Makes it a little easier to digest.
Yeah.
Everything about the movies, though, I mean, if we're starting with just Phantom Menace, is if you can get past the 20-year-old CGI,
Hmm.
then it's okay.
Yeah. It's the first time anybody did green screen on that scale.
Yeah. Oh
So, I
yeah.
mean, now we're so used to it. We're so used to all the movies have. There's very rarely any scenes where it's all practical, except when you get to some auteur directors. But like a big battle sequence with a bunch of droids, like you can't do that practically. But it was also like I remember seeing the clips of how they shot, like did the motion capture, and how they had the bungee cords holding back the guys that were pretending to be the droids as they went through the Gungan force field, and like how they were holding them back and then let them go as if they were like squeezing through this force field and then they can walk normally. It's like I remember seeing that very vividly, and I'm like, this is bonkers. So the technology he came up with was insane, and it is now the framework for how anybody and
Yeah.
everybody does movies. The story, not awful. The story is unique. The story is good. You get introduced to Anakin as a kid. He gets picked up by a couple of Jedi to try and take him because he's got this new thing that we'd never heard of, midichlorians, in his bloodstream. He's packed with the Force
I don't want to
genes,
talk about the midichlorians, man.
and he was born from the Force. He doesn't have a dad. Like there's a lot of stuff that gets thrown at you. But all that aside, I think the real winner of the Phantom Menace is you get introduced also to Darth Sidious and the way that he manipulates at Padme, the way that he manipulates the Senate to take control is just impressive. Impressive. And it starts in that first
Yeah.
one. And he's working both sides of this whole deal, and it's just bonkers. So for me, it's the story, and like if you can get away from the movie because the movie's not great, but like it's telling you there's something else going on, and the arc of the story is still it's so rich. It's just the movie isn't executed in an entertaining way. So lots of walking and talking.
I think part of the issue with it was it starts on Naboo, or like they get to Naboo and then they leave Naboo and crash land basically on Tatooine, and then they pick up Anakin and go to Coruscant, but then they go back to Naboo and just there's too much,
Hmm.
too much.
Yeah,
I mean, not to say that like Attack of the Clones is any better.
yeah. A lot of people actually put that as the worst of the two, but I think in
It has
Attack
the
of the
Battle of
Clones,
Geonosis.
it's got a cool battle scene. That
It's got
battle
the
is
cool
epic.
battles.
It's the first time we got to see that many lightsabers fighting, and so that was cool. And it's like the last time we got to see that. I don't know if we saw, except in the cartoons, except animated. I don't know if we saw
Yeah,
another lightsaber battle like that.
nope.
So that was cool. You saw Samuel L. Jackson with his purple lightsaber. You get introduced to Boba Fett as a little boy. and his father, Jango Fett. So that was cool. And I think that kind of opened up this whole like stuff they probably explored in the books, but nobody had done in the movies yet. The Mandalorians and where that armor came from. And he kind of borrowed from those stories and kind of did his own kind of spin on it and kind of brought them into the canon. But like, I think watching, like, again, the movie's not great, but the story is still there. There's still a framework it just kind of gets off track and does some silly stuff with C-3PO and R2-D2 that you're
The
just like, what
factory.
is, yeah, the factory scene.
It's a
But it's
cool
like
Lego Star Wars level, but
it is definitely. But the Battle of Geonosis, you see Yoda fight for the first time. He's fighting Count Dooku. That was bonkers and crazy and cool to see.
Dooku's little speeder.
Yeah.
Terrible
You didn't
design
like
choice.
it?
No.
But yeah, I mean, you get it basically kicks off the Clone Wars, in which we heard about from Obi-Wan in the very first time he's talking with Luke. He's talking about the Clone Wars, talking about this whole thing. So we're finally able to see that. But then in the movie, it's just like the beginning of it, the introduction to it. And then we don't see them. We don't see Clone Wars anymore until a few years later when they finally do the animated series. And then you're seeing, oh, so this is the Clone Wars. But it picks up in the movies, it jumps over to Revenge of the Sith, and we get a lot more of the basically Obi-Wan and Anakin and Padme relationship, which advanced in the second movie towards marriage, secret marriage, and then that kind of begins to bring Anakin to his downfall, and you see Darth Sidious and Palpatine doing more awesome maneuvering and manipulation and all that stuff. What's some of your thoughts on Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith?
Attack of the Clones. It's where Obi-Wan's hair looked the best. It's where Anakin's hair looked the worst.
Yes, he's got like the little mullet, the Jedi mullet.
Yeah, with the one braid. No, the movie could have jumped around a little less, but it set a lot of groundwork on what the Star Wars universe looks like with some of the creatures and some of the planets and different species from all over the place. I mean, we see the bar on Coruscant, and that's one of the side characters whose name eludes me. The bartender guy, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I don't remember.
But I mean, it did the same thing that Jabba's palace did in Return of the Jedi. There are all of these different species, and while we may not know the names of any of them, but like we can see the Twi'leks, and I mean it's more than just humans and Wookiees. And I think that's a huge part of what Star Wars is. It? I mean, it is a universe.
Yeah,
it's not just people on Earth.
Yeah, and then like you said, the unique species, the unique characters, and all that stuff. I know the Geonosians were just super unique, the way that they looked. And then you've got the shapeshifter, and you've got the really cool chase scene in Coruscant that's got some good action beats. But you also see Anakin begin to unravel, and his ambition is outpacing his patience, and all the way to the point where he leaves with Padme to go find his mother because he can sense through the Jedi, like the Force streams, that she's in pain, she's in trouble, and he has to go try and save her. Ends up just killing a bunch of sand people because of it, and then that kind of is that's the beginning of the downfall.
He was right.
He was right to kill them in cold blood?
No. He was right that his mom was in trouble.
Yes, yeah.
I think he could have dealt with it a little differently, but
yeah,
you can't necessarily blame him for leaving his post on Naboo. I mean, it is an attachment, and that's part of the issues with.
Yes.
I mean, you go back to Phantom Menace, and Mace Windu said, "No, we're not going to train him. He's too old."
Right.
He knows
because he's already
what
experienced.
Yeah, he's experienced things, and he's going to know what he's losing if we do this. And now he has that attachment to his mother. So now he went against orders because of it.
Yeah.
But that's the good storytelling of it. That's
yeah. It's like it's worth it. His power is so great. Like Obi-Wan's like, we gotta. I'm gonna do this for Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's like, you got to train the boy, because they believe that he was the person that was going to bring balance to the Force. They just thought that meant right. They just thought that meant he was going to be the good guy. And it's like, no, you have a whole legion of Jedi who are power hungry as well. And Palpatine and Sidious is like, I'm going to manipulate this young man to become my Padawan, my Sith trainee, because the Force wants it to happen that way. The Force needs to balance it. It's too green right now. We need to bring a little bit more red in here. And so I did send you that clip of Freddie Prinze Jr. just going off on that podcast. I can't share it because he drops too many F-bombs, but man, like he spelled it out so great. He's like talking about how all these Star Wars geeks don't know the story. Like you think you want it to be a certain way, but you don't know what's really going on, you know?
The balance is 2 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just what it is. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So we get to Revenge of the Sith, and this is like it's touted as this is the turning point. I personally thought we were going to get more Vader. We didn't get any Vader until the very end, and he puts on the suit. I thought we were going to get some more, and I always wanted to, and then we get a little bit in one of the shows we'll get to in a second. But yeah, Revenge of the Sith, like you said earlier, some amazing battle, like fights, saber fights, like you can't, just the one Obi-Wan and Anakin, yeah, like you said it. Perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So it just shows you what you can do in that world. You also get introduced to General Grievous in the opening, which we had not seen before, but then we get more into his character in the Clone Wars series. But yeah, that was a cool character visually.
That is one of my biggest issues with the prequels is we got Darth Maul, and then we lost Darth Maul, and then we got Dooku, and we then make it to, like, he lives through the movie, and everybody's so happy, and we start Revenge of the Sith, and we lose him. And then it's like, oh, well, here's General Grievous. And then he gets on an escape pod, and then he leaves, and then Obi-Wan goes to Utapau, and we lose Grievous. Now, we had to lose Grievous, obviously. That one was expected, but getting a different semi-antagonist, or, seemingly main antagonist, but actually not because it's Sidious, like, it's a tough pill to swallow. It makes it.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when they're so cool.
I know, right? He knows how to make a cool looking villain. So yeah, so this one, definitely Palpatine's manipulating Anakin, turns him completely to the dark side due to the story that he tells of Darth Plagueis.
The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Yes.
Yes. And that learning the power to come back from the dead and all that stuff. So it's good. And I'll tell you, like watching the first time through, even second, third, fourth times through, like you don't pick up on all that's going on. It's there, but to really kind of understand what's happening, it took a few times to see it, and to me to be a little older to grasp what the story that George is trying to weave in here. But I mean, that's a really cool story. I actually have the book on audio that's Legends now, but he's referenced in the film, so he exists. It's just a matter of his origin. And all that stuff is considered Legends, but yeah, like that was a great scene. I love that scene. I love that the way that he's manipulating that puts the bug in Anakin's ear when Padme, when he sees woman he loves struggling and in pain. He's got to save the day. He's got to save her. He doesn't understand. It's just childbirth, bro. Like it could just be childbirth. Like don't go killing people. But
where's the Force healing, man? Where did that come from? How did they? I mean, they had it before.
Yeah.
They had it after. Why didn't he just learn that?
Yeah.
That's not in the library.
Yeah. No, it got deleted as well as Geonosis. Not Geonosis. What was it? No, it wasn't Geonosis. What was it? The clone people.
The Kaminoans.
Who made the Kaminoans? That's who I was meaning. The Kaminoans earlier when I said the Geonosians, but the Kaminoans are just really cool.
The whole planet of Kamino being wiped from the archives.
Yeah, that was good. Anything more about the prequels that's worth bringing up?
Mustafar is such a cool planet. Not literally. I mean, literally, it's one of the hottest in the galaxy. The Order 66 montage.
Yes.
Of all of these, I mean, while it has a lot of weight, we didn't see much of Aayla Secura. We didn't see much of Plo Koon or Ki-Adi-Mundi. We didn't see much of any of them throughout the 3 movies.
Right.
So watching them die was sad, but we didn't have that emotional attachment to them.
Right.
Which I guess is in line with Jedi code, but
Yeah, I don't know if that's on purpose though. But yeah.
I think, I mean, as an avid Star Wars fan, it means a lot more having watched Clone Wars and being able to see the clones' attachment with their Jedi battalion, or like
Mm-hmm.
as part of that Jedi's battalion, being able to just flip a switch and pull the trigger. And that means a lot more, and it's the real twist of the knife.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. Well, then it was a long time we thought the Star Wars was done after Revenge of the Sith. We thought, okay, well, it's just going to be the 6. We know that George has got ideas for more, but that's all we're going to get for some reason. And then George sells it to Disney
Disney.
in 2000, I think 12 or 2013 is when they
Yeah.
bought it. And then they started working on the new trilogy, of course, right out the gate. They have ideas for one-off movies in between the prequel or the sequels. And they introduce us to a new character. They bring in J.J. Abrams to direct. And then we start seeing those trailers and we see that Han is back with Chewie. And he says, Chewie, we're home. And you're just like, tears, like just crazy. Yes, this
So
is, yeah.
exciting, and then we watch the movie and it's
Yeah.
so sad.
Yeah. We haven't really talked a ton about the sequel trilogy, so let's just jump into it, man. Like Force Awakens, what's your thoughts?
This was the first Star Wars movie that I was able to like really feel like I could formulate my own thoughts about leaving the theater. It was the
Wow,
first
that
one.
bad,
It
huh?
was the first. It's the first one that I was able to act. Well, I mean, it came out in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I was
You're 15 to
15 at the
16.
time,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
obviously I knew more than everybody else.
Yeah. Obviously.
And it, I don't know. I mean, it was the first Star Wars movie I was able to see in theaters,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I thought it was really well done. It taking place 20 years after, like A New Hope takes place 20 years after Revenge of the Sith. So I mean, them having a little time jump, it makes sense. And it's something that you kind of have to have because you can't build a sequel trilogy to the original trilogy that picks up immediately,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just 6 continuous movies. They
Right.
wouldn't be separated in any way. So
Well, yeah, and you'd have to recast everybody. Like it's not.
yeah,
This gives us an opportunity to bring those original characters back in the original actors back and kind of be able to tell that story in a unique way. I think it also gives some distance so you can kind of see. Well, what's crazy is you don't get. It's kind of like what we got with the Attack of the Clones into Revenge of the Sith. You missed the Clone Wars, so we've got Return of the Jedi and then Force Awakens. Like you miss the whole New Republic. Like it's
yeah,
it's
oh yeah,
destroyed in the first 45 minutes of the movie with this whole new huge bigger Death Star. And so it's like you there's all this that happened in between so that the Force needs to raise a new Messiah because there's this evil that's brewing. And so, that's kind of how I interpreted some of that.
yeah. Well put. I mean, the only parts about the movie that I really wasn't the biggest fan of is, yeah, like I liked seeing new planets because I mean the first 6 movies did really only take place, other than the little Order 66 montage, on 11 planets.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen the maps. Like, I mean, the maps are there on Wikipedia and everywhere else. Like, there's 35 planets in the little map. So it only taking place on 11 just doesn't sit right with me. But the movie centering around the lightsaber more than
Mm-hmm.
anything,
Mm-hmm.
when the lightsaber was literally thrown down a trash chute. And I mean, we watched Luke fall down that same trash chute, and he caught an antenna down at the bottom of it. So where did the lightsaber go? Are you gonna tell me that the lightsaber magically landed on a cloud and was picked up by somebody else? We don't know what's under the cloud city of Bespin. So
Sure. Well, obviously, smugglers and scoundrels and scavengers that picked it up, and
yeah,
yeah, but they bring it to Then there's what's that, Maz
yeah, Maz
Maz
Kanata.
Kanata. She has force sensitivity. So this is kind of the first time we're really seeing someone who's force sensitive that's not a Jedi. That's in the movies. In the movies, all the movies, you're Force, either you're Sith or you're Jedi. Force Awakens, you get introduced to an idea of the kind of Force sensitive, but not a part of either of the two groups. Am I
Yeah.
wrong on that?
No, I think you're right. I was just thinking of like Jocasta Nu is the librarian in the archives.
Okay, gotcha.
She wasn't really a Jedi, but she lived in the temple.
Yeah,
So
I would say she's. I mean, she's Jedi
she's
by
definitely Jedi aligned. Yes.
yeah. And then I think for me, I really dug it. I did see an interview. So they brought Loris Kasdan back, who was a part of the original trilogy screenwriting. I think he directed one of the films, and he may have just written them, but he came back to help write the sequel with J.J. Abrams. And he said in an interview one time, he said, we have to go back before we can go forward to reconnect to that joy so that's why a lot of the beats of Force Awakens is very similar to New Hope. It's like it was a conscious decision to say, hey, let's go back and kind of revisit that story that we all fell in love with a new set of characters and cast, and then we can see what happens after that. J.J. Abrams is famously great at setting up twists and turns and odd things that make you go, and then not really needing to finish it up and kind of leaving it in someone else's hands to try and finish up. So Force Awakens
Yeah.
does say, where's Luke? Something happened. What happened that made Luke go hide off? They're trying to find him. And then who is this girl? Is she related to anybody? They kept posing all these questions, but never answering anything. And that just kind of set this mystery up. But I really did I think just seeing the things that we fell in love with as kids in a modern movie was cool enough in itself. But I did really like Rey. I liked Finn. I liked even Poe Dameron. I liked Kylo Ren. I liked all of these characters.
Yeah.
The really, really solid characters, each with their own kind of strengths and gifts. And, I think it was set up really well to kind of do some cool things. And so I was impressed with what we got with Force Awakens.
Kylo Ren was very cool, no matter how unrealistic his lightsaber with crossguard with
Yeah, it looked cool.
the cracked kyber crystal that made it look all shaky.
Mm-hmm.
That made it
Yeah,
look even cooler.
absolutely. Absolutely. Have you been to Star Wars Land
I have
at
not.
Disney? It's so great. It's so great. We've got each of the boys kyber crystals from the shop. And then we got one, I did the Jedi lightsaber building event, and that was just super cool. And so then you can put the kyber crystal in the lightsaber and it lights up differently and has a different sound. So it's pretty fun. All right, so we get from Force Awakens into probably the most divisive of all the Star Wars films, even with all that we hated from all the people that hated the prequels. There was just visceral hate for Last Jedi on one side of it. Where did you fall on The Last Jedi?
Wasn't the biggest fan. I liked it because it was Star Wars. I liked I don't know what the planet was called, but the big battle where they
Mm-hmm.
were
Oh
the
yeah,
rebels in
yeah.
the cave.
Scarif.
Gareth was in Rogue One.
Was that right? Oh, good call.
Yeah. No, I think it was the Salt Planet in The Last
Yeah.
Jedi. But I mean, it's a cool battle, and I liked everything about it except for Luke's
Crate.
just.
Sorry, Crate.
Oh yeah, great. Luke just disappearing afterwards. Like I get it, it takes a lot of energy to force a a holographic projection of yourself across the galaxy, but for him to just die after that, that didn't really feel like the Luke that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And since we didn't get to see we didn't get to see old Luke at all in The Force Awakens, and all we got was him being temperamental and childish, throwing little tantrums about, I'm not going to train you after what happened last time. What happened last time? I'm not telling you. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we could really use your help. We've got this whole thing going on. Yeah, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm on my island for a reason. Well, you gave R2D2 a map. Obviously, you wanted someone to be able to find you. So, I don't know. It felt so disconnected from the other six movies. And you just said that with Force Awakens, like I said, you have to go back before you can go forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like what Luke did with the lightsaber, it went
Yeah.
off the cliff, and like they went backwards, and they were like, yeah, like this is the lightsaber and this is the Force, and like who do you want to be?
Hmm.
Go find Luke. We find Luke, and then we get that first conversation with him, and they have just ignored everything about going back to connect to the other 6 movies.
Yeah. I hear all that. I know. I resonate with a lot of it. I can tell. I can see the complaints, and I can see the definitely empathize. For me, when I saw it, I really liked it. I am a person that likes the deconstruction of the whole thing, and I think that's what The Last Jedi was. It was a deconstruction of. It basically gave you everything, the opposite of everything that you would want, right? Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it kind of it was a twist at every point, and I think I can see that the director and writer, he just kind of went all in on everything he wanted to do, and wasn't necessarily concerned with connecting it to anything or setting up anything in the future. It was just like, hey, here's this one story. But at the same time, I can relate to that kind of being an older Jedi, and I made a mistake, a big mistake, and my life, I ruined so many people's lives that I just want to go hide in a hole somewhere. And I can get that. I think the other thing that Last Jedi introduced too was, well, the connection between the Kylo and Rey. There's this interesting connection through the Force that they're having. It introduced us to, well, we had, what was the main bad guy in Force
Nope.
Awakens? Snoke. That was an interesting character. Andy Serkis did a beautiful job of,
He was interesting, and we didn't get to see him until Last Jedi, and then they pulled a prequel trilogy and killed him in the same movie.
yeah. But I think the other thing that I really like about it is it really does kind of harken back a little bit to Empire, in that Luke had to go through the training, and he had to go to his Jedi. He had to go to the dark forest and have to walk through the trials and walk through that and face his fears in the same way that Rey had to do that. But she wasn't afraid, and that scared Luke. And I like that moment and that idea that she doesn't know what to fear. She doesn't have any fear of the dark side. And so could there be this strength and this power that she could use, like Luke used in Return of the Jedi to defeat his father? He used his anger in a positive way to defeat his father, and then realized that he had won the fight, and he didn't need to go any further. But he used it to his advantage in a controlled way. And I think that they were trying to introduce something with that, with Rey. Like, she's got so much power, and it's just like the picking up the 1,500 stones at the end. I think there was some clever scripting, like callbacks, with Luke's saying, all you do is pick up stones, or what do you think, you want me to go out there and face the entire First Order with my laser sword? Like, I can't do that. Like, all of that kind of setting up this big battle at the
I don't
end.
know. I read a couple of those comics. I think Luke definitely could have done that.
Yeah, he could have. He could have. But there's some fun stuff there. But I definitely see the gripes. We get a little Yoda Force Ghost as well. We also get a Force Tree, which we'd never seen in the movies before.
Yeah,
So that's unique. Something
there's
that's
definitely positives.
yeah, yeah.
The fight scene where they killed Snoke is a huge positive. The
Mm-hmm.
like back and forth between Kylo and Rey.
Yeah.
And I already said the part about Crate being a positive.
Yeah, no, but no lightsaber battles. Like, they were fighting against the Praetorian guards and not each other. So we didn't have any lightsaber on lightsaber. So there's some things that like just feel where it doesn't feel like it's. I think that was his goal, though, was to give us something that we weren't expecting, and flip it on its head, and kind of see what comes out. And some people liked it, some people didn't. So
The big parts that I really didn't like beyond the hologram Luke was the casino planet called Canto
hmm
Bight. That was what
yeah,
I just looked the name up of.
yeah,
And the Holdo maneuver.
yeah.
Because if we talk about what we know about hyperspace travel, you don't physically pass through something while going into hyperdrive or hyperspace. It's hyperspace. You're connecting two points very far away from each other with a subspace tunnel. You wouldn't fly through a ship, because the whole idea, in every other movie, they're just punching in coordinates and going.
hmm
Is there a planet in the way? Probably. Are there other ships in the way? Yeah, probably. I mean, it
It's like
takes.
this. It's like the fast lane. It's like exiting. You're not on the same highway as everybody else. Like you exited into this like express lane, HOV lane. And
Yeah,
you're going the fast way to get to this other planet. Everybody else is just on their own, the regular highway.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just
The only thing I
how
would
did
say
how
to
did
that
how
is
did they
that
fly through the ship? That's what bugs me.
the only thing I would say to that is I wonder if it has to do with the proximity of the ship to it, that
They didn't
it
accelerate
hadn't entered it.
enough.
It
Yeah.
hadn't entered it. It was still in the beginning stages. Like they were just about to exit, but there was a car blocking it. But I was going to exit. Oh, you didn't, that's kind of how I see it. We also got Leia doing the witch flying in the
Yes.
space that kind of threw everybody too. Just thought about that. But no, it's fair, man. All the criticisms are
Well,
fair.
and did Carrie Fisher pass away before the movie came out?
After this
Or
one and then
she
before the
okay.
Rise of Skywalker.
Before Rise
Yeah.
of Skywalker. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, we saw Rey doing some cool things with her force powers, and we saw Luke, and it was a replication of Hoth with the walkers on the
Yeah, on
salt
Crate.
planet,
Yeah.
with the it's like, yeah, but it's the same thing we saw, just bigger, and it was beautifully
Much
done,
much
beautifully.
scarier.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, well, let's jump to the last one of the Skywalker stories. Is we get to Rise of Skywalker. The rebellion is the new rebellion. The new is up and running and trying to fight down the First Order. And Poe and Rey and Finn are all kind of working together to try and stop it. Trying to do something with it. We got Force horses. We got Jedi. We got Star Wars horses. Aliens. That was pretty cool. But we also get Kylo Ren basically turning good at the end and fighting with her. And then she calls on the force of all Jedis before her and takes down Palpatine, kind of summarizing the whole movie in that little bit. But really cool, some really cool visuals when Kylo Ren is flying his TIE fighter at her and she does a backflip over it. Like, that's pretty stinking cool
Yes.
looking. We had all the ships that came to fight the Star Destroyers on the big space battle above the planet, which is very similar to Jedi. Space battles happening while someone is facing off against Palpatine. But surprise, Palpatine's still alive. Like like all that stuff.
That bugged me. That bugged me. All of the visuals of the planet of Exegol it was cool. I mean the first thing that we see of the planet is lightning strikes and we have all of the Star Destroyers just floating there in the sky, and it's super menacing.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know at the time what's happening because we thought the First Order was basically taken down with Snoke's death, the
Snoke,
same way
yeah.
that the Empire died with Palpatine. I don't know.
We also got
Honestly,
the what was
uh,
this? The hyper jumping at the very beginning,
yeah, yeah,
where
the
they
being
jump
able to
hyperspace.
track, being able to
Yeah,
follow through hyperspace.
yeah. Well, no, that was in Last Jedi.
Oh,
But this
okay.
one was like Poe is at the very beginning. They're trying to steal something, and then they're going and they hyperspace to one planet, hyperspace to another planet. It was just
Yeah,
some
yeah.
sort of, I couldn't remember exactly what they called it, but that kind of jumping from one thing to another. That was a unique thing. Yeah, they fly now. That was an interesting quote because I remember seeing John Boyega, who played Finn, in an interview. He's saying, "Yeah, they've been flying since the prequels. Everybody knows that they can fly. Like what?
They've been flying for 50 years. Yeah.
What? What? Why are we surprised by this?" But it was a funny line. They fly now. They fly now. Whatever. But yeah, I think I was not as excited about it. I think I did have a fun ride opening night because I had all the boys there and we were all like, we just finished watching all seven and we are like, or eight prequels. And we're like, yeah, let's do this. And I was excited about it. I felt like it was fan service. Like it's giving you all the feels,
Yeah.
but there just wasn't
With
much meat.
Lando coming back. Yeah.
Yes, yep. Wasn't a whole lot of meat to it, but it had some cool visuals and had some, I didn't like that she was related to Palpatine.
Me neither.
I get why they did it. but where she was like Rey Skywalker at the very end. It's like, it doesn't make sense. I get it from a touchy, like emotional, yeah, that makes sense
Yeah.
emotionally, but it didn't make sense with her. Like, she's her own person. Isn't that like the whole point? Oh, wait, she's not her own person. She's only this way because her grandpappy was Palpatine who slept around. Like,
Yeah, no,
okay.
the whole idea, I mean, the Force Awakens going back to the other six movies to try and move forward with something new, and then you just throw it all out the window for The Last Jedi, and then you had The Rise of Skywalker trying to pick up the pieces to put
Hmm.
something together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I do feel like from a I really enjoy Star Wars standpoint, the movie was doomed from the start. It's cool.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched it since I saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
I haven't
I
seen
think I
it
saw it
again.
think I saw it twice in theaters, maybe three times. But again, it was because, it's Star Wars and I want to see it in the theaters. I don't think I own it. I think I own the rest of them, but I don't own this one. Yeah, I will say, if we can, we're going to have to do a different episode to tackle the other stuff. We don't have to postpone it for too long. I mean, we can throw it on the schedule and just have it be a bonus episode, but we're going to be talking all night, which I'm glad. I'm glad this is fun. So that's kind of the main nine movies. That's the Skywalker saga, as they say. We get introduced to the Anakin, and then Luke, and then Rey, and they're kind of our touch points. We did touch on it just quickly, but I do want to just give a little bit more love to Rogue One. Rogue One was one of the one-offs that came out and just like blew everybody's minds. It was great.
Arguably the best Star Wars movie from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great. It's basically the direct prequel to A New Hope. You end Rogue One with Leia getting the plans for the Death Star, which she then is hiding from Vader in A New Hope, and Vader's after her. So it's really cool idea, really cool concept. As you said before, you've got the fact that everybody that's in this movie dies because the planet's blown up. That's kind of emotionally gripping. I don't know if you've read it, but there's a book called Catalyst that is a direct prequel to Rogue One, and it's the
I have not.
story of her dad. Jen Erso is the main character. Felicity Jones plays her dad, Galen Erso. It's like his story of him meeting Krennic in college and marrying his wife, and then kind of working and them rising the ranks, and then like he starts to pick up on all of this bad stuff, and then it's the end of the book is him bailing on the Empire, and so that's kind of so then when you pick it up at Rogue One, and you're like, who are these people? Like that's their that you kind of got some of that in the book. So
Okay.
I would definitely suggest reading that one because it's a really solid book, and I think it elevates Rogue One even further because there's so much good like Star Wars mythology in this. Not Force mythology. It's all like the science, and it's it's that side of things, the Empire, and
I can
like
get
how
behind that.
people are like his wife is really believes in the Jedi, and he's like believes in science. So it's like this whole faith versus science type of discussion, and it's really good. But Krennic, great villain, and I love a villain that's also kind of a peon. Whenever he's with Tarkin, we saw a digital Tarkin. That was really cool, really well done, I thought. And then you got Vader back, and he's kind of a younger Vader, and so he's got a little bit
A
more
little more
power to
mobile.
him, a little more mobile. And he had a really cool the closing 5 minutes fight scene where he's taking out all the rebels.
So
Was pretty
cool.
intense. Yeah, yeah. Any other thoughts on Rogue One?
When I left the theater, it was definitely the thought of, well, yeah, we were introduced to those characters and they died, whoop de doo. I don't really feel like I need to have more story on any of them. And then watching Andor, which I told you in preparation for this, that was a big show that I hadn't watched. And
Wow.
when it came out, it was one of those like, yeah, but I mean, it's that guy. I know where his story ends.
Hmm.
Like, what can they really do to show me a beginning more than I got in the movie? I was wrong.
It's a big
I was
man to
wrong.
say when you're wrong. It's good. It's good. Yeah, and
And
Andor's.
I do want that book. So if you have a copy of
Yeah,
that you
absolutely,
can share with me,
absolutely.
I do want that one.
Really good book, really good story. Like you said, introduced us to Andor, and Andor season 2 is dropping tomorrow. So everybody, hope you enjoyed this episode. as we just kind of talk through all the Star Wars movies. We will do part 2 later this year. We're going to tackle shows, animations, video games, books, everything else that we got in Star Wars. We're going to touch on it as best we can. Any final words, Scott?
I'm looking forward to the next one. I've done a lot of talking about how long I can talk about Star Wars, and I think this showed that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you being on, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, just a reminder, you can check out all of our links at bio.site/movies that make you. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, keep watching movies.